Hello, 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 ladies and gentlemen. Let me get a one in the chat. As usual, we got to start out with a little audio check. Get a one in the chat if you guys can hear, hear my voice. Let me get a quick one in the chat. All right, I see one, I see one, I see one. So, shout out to everybody, ladies and gentlemen. This is a bit of an impromptu chat. Shout out to Commandant. And Mr. Benevolent in the chat, making major profits in the chat. Welcome, 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 everybody. So today's gonna be lit. Today is gonna be a banger. And we have a very special guest in the building today. Why don't you go
Well,
ahead
good
and
evening,
introduce
ladies and
yourself, sir?
gentlemen. This is your man, Nuugame. I am a producer, more than a producer. You can call me a composer. You can call me an executive producer. You can call me a label owner. But whatever you label me as, I am a creator of good and inspiring music. And I've been doing that since 1999 and counting.
Excellent, excellent, excellent introduction. And also, by the way, we've also had another interview. This is the second time that my man New Game is showing up in the channel. The last time we interviewed him in his capacity as the president of American Heritage University. Go ahead and check out that video. It's called Conversations with a High Value Man, president of American Heritage University. I will also in the chat be dropping links to his Facebook, his Instagram, New Game Productions, and also American Heritage University. Go ahead and watch that video. So the way we're going to do this, we're just going to jump right into it. Okay, we're going to jump right into it, and we're going to ask, because some people in this space, in this part of YouTube, number one, are definitely interested in music, and then secondly, some people actually deem themselves producers, or they may be interested. Okay, as Mr. Benevolent says, he said he's got his headphones on and he's got some notes. Okay, he's got his notepad. So
What's up?
someone is trying to start, okay, on this space. What tools would you recommend to them in order to get the most bang for their buck? Now, I'm going to say that this is someone that's starting, okay? So let's assume that they're not
On a
anywhere near
budget.
your level. So, what are the tools that you would recommend to get the most bang for their buck?
Okay, well, before we start talking about the tools, I think the biggest mistake that's happening today in the music industry, we have people that are interested in music but don't understand and have a deeper love and an understanding for music. So the first thing I would say to anyone, the first thing you want to do is understand what emotions music give you. So if I started playing, if I just started humming a song, I started saying dun 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 dun, it's gonna give you blood pressure. It's gonna raise up your pressure. It's gonna get you a little bit more excited. But if I started going, that suddenly starts to make you feel a little bit more emotional, maybe perhaps a little sad.
Hmm.
So now if I started going dun 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 dun, it's like a joyful, happy tone to that, right? So the little bit of homework I would tell everyone, understand the emotion of music, understand what emotions you can trigger through music. And so listen to music. If you're watching a movie next time, pay attention to the sounds that they're playing when there's a love scene, or when there's a when the bad guy has been defeated or the good guy wins, or there's a war scene or a fight scene. Pay attention to the music. Now, of course, some movies like Kill Bill, kind of take an unorthodox approach where they don't necessarily play the music to fit the scene, but we're not talking about those movies, right? We're talking about your traditional Batman, Superman, superhero movie. When the fights come in, there's a certain sound and notes that they play. So that would be my first recommendation. The second recommendation I would recommend, the second thing I would recommend is get a good computer, get a decent computer.
Hmm.
Make an investment in a computer that can handle some of the work you're planning to do. As straightforward as that sound, it could get a little more interesting. But they say put your money where your mouth is, right? But a decent computer to start doing music starts about $1,000. So I recommend a Mac computer, just because Macs make it a little bit easy to acquire software, and the setup to get going on the Mac is a lot easier. It's literally truly plug and play. So that would be my first thing. Get a computer. After you understand a little bit of music, get a computer. because, for example, if you purchase a Mac today, right out the box, it comes with a software called GarageBand, and GarageBand comes with enough to get the first time, you know, curious person going to get started with a variety of instrument sounds, piano sounds, guitar, bass sounds, drum sounds, and some of your basic VTS plugins for things like equalization and things like that. We can get
Okay.
into that a little bit later. And then get a microphone and get a MIDI controller. Learn how to play the keyboard. It helps, right? But you don't really need to know how in this day and age. There's so many tools out there, MIDI sample packs, but I'm old fashioned. I play everything. I'll jump on the instrument and play it. If I can't play it, I'll emulate it through a VTS instrument. But get a MIDI controller. And a MIDI controller, I'll show you what one looks like. This is a MIDI controller. All it is just a keyboard. As you can see here, I'll try to get on the mic. It's just a keyboard with no sounds. It has no sounds built into it.
Mm.
You just need to plug it with the USB cable to your computer. And if you turn on your guitar, your GarageBand, and you touch the keys, you'll hear a sound. So some of these, I don't know if you can see clear, they have drum pads, so you can use this for your drum pads. You can also use the keys to get a drum pad. And if you look closely, I labeled these. Do I need them? No. But humble yourself and label your keyboards, right? That way, if you were to download a music note or sheet and they said play B, you can look on your keyboard and find that this is the B key itself. So a MIDI controller is always good. The next thing that you would need, I would say, get a microphone. You can get a decent microphone for about $150. Of course, buying a microphone means you have to get an external audio USB unit to go along with it. You can get those about $100. So at about $1,500, you can get set up with a computer, a Mac, preferably and recommended, a Mac computer, a MIDI controller, and you have yourself a microphone. Everything else really becomes preference. It's basically right now we're just talking about 4 wheels, a steering wheel, and a driver's seat. That's all you need to get going, right? But you can start to expand that from there, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So MIDI, microphone. Why do you need a microphone, by the way, if someone is just trying to make beats, or so what's the microphone about?
That's a good question. So let me give you an example. You could, a microphone just means that you're ready to start really producing music, because this is a microphone that I'm using. Sometimes I'll have an idea of a beat in the studio. Maybe I want to make a beat that goes let me just beatbox. Say it goes. So you could just take your microphone and you could get on your software and you could record yourself doing that. And then you can loop that on the software, and then load up a drum kit and really start to find those sounds that you're beatboxing with. So that's one. Number two, if you have a sample, like, we all know that one popular song from Ice Cube, Coming from the West Side, right? So you can have a sample that you want to say on your track, and you can really start getting comfortable being behind the microphone. So if you want to put a vocal sample in there and start playing around with it, it's, you're ready to be creative at the levels of, if you bring somebody that plays the instrument because you can in the piano, you're ready to go. If you bring somebody that's ready to rap or sing or make a spoken word on your vocals, on your track, you're ready to go, as opposed to, oh man, I wish I had a microphone. So if you get those elements I mentioned earlier, you're ready to start making music.
Excellent, excellent. So it's almost like, because I know Kanye West is one of the producers that emphasizes the human voice as an instrument, right?
Absolutely.
And a lot, with the sampling, with the using of voice and so on and so forth. So that's very interesting. Now, just to reiterate, okay, what tools was the question, right? Someone is just getting started. The tools that you would, first of all, you said, get an understanding for the emotions of music, okay?
Right.
I would like us to, does one need to understand the keys or the majors versus the minors, or, just go ahead and watch a movie, right? And see the kind of soundtrack behind the movie and understand what sounds happy, what sounds sad, and so on and so forth? Or how deep does one go into it initially in terms of understanding the emotions of the music?
Well, yeah, I think that's a great question, because I didn't want to get into minors and majors, but if you're listening to the sound, if you're paying attention to the emotion of the music. So let me just take an example I use. You say you're trying to recreate dun 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 dun. Let's forget about minors and majors for a second. If you have that tune in your head and you pull up GarageBand and you pull out your MIDI controller and you're saying dum and you hit your keyboard, you're looking for that sound, you find it dum 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 dum, and you're just playing it with your finger, right? It's all
Mhm.
about creating the sound that you hear in your head. That's how I started. And
Okay.
then as you play it and you dum 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 dum, what's the next note? Then you look for that next note. And really that's just two notes, but it creates a lot of drama. So dun 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 dun. Sorry, three notes. Dun dun dun, right? So that
Mhm.
creates that drama. So as you progress as a producer or a beat maker, whatever you want to label yourself, you'll get to a point where you'll start to. That's why I said on the earlier on the MIDI controller, and I'm going to bring it up again.
Mhm.
I have this labeled here. I have all the keys on here. So what you'll learn is that if you have the key of A right here, everything to the right of A, the next key on the right of an A is an A sharp, and the key to the left of the A is an A flat. If you have your notes on there, you really don't have to memorize this stuff. So if you went online and you say, I want to play a popular, Kanye West song, and someone says, oh, it's B, B, B flat, A flat, right? And you could just know that's B, B, A flat, B flat, right?
Hmm.
So that's what that'll do for you when you start getting deeper. The first thing is just have fun, get into your creative fun space with sounds, and you can worry about the mechanics and the notes later.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So shout out to Mr. North again. Shout out to Nicer. All right. Thank you guys for showing up and sharing the stream. We got 10 people in here so far. And good point to reiterate here, get a computer,
All
right?
right.
Get a Mac preferred because it already comes with GarageBand loaded, so you don't have to spend money on the software, right?
Correct. Correct.
And generally speaking, Mac is the preferred system for all kinds of creative endeavors, right?
That's
Now,
correct.
whether it be photography, the visual arts, so on and so forth. Now, get a MIDI player, right? Was the next thing that
A MIDI controller.
MIDI controller. Okay.
Right.
Is there such thing as a MIDI player, or did I just say some kind of a blunder?
There is a MIDI player, but MIDI, because all MIDI is musical instruments digital interface, right?
Hmm.
So there are MIDI notes that a MIDI player can interpret those MIDI notes that have been produced by a software such as GarageBand.
Gotcha,
Right.
gotcha. So you want to get a computer, okay, and then you want to get a MIDI
Controller.
controller,
Right.
okay.
Now let me expand the word controller. In my studio, I have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight different MIDI controllers. And here's an example of a MIDI controller. This is a MIDI controller. This is called the Touch by Ableton.
Mm,
Um, and that just all this really means is if I plug this over to my computer and I turn it on, and I have a piano sound selected. If I touch this, it's going to trigger the piano, whatever note that it finds associated with this particular pad. So all that a MIDI controller just means that it's a physical device that controls a software sound
mm-hmm,
or a software command.
mm-hmm,
So, for example, there is a play button over here somewhere. It gets lit up once you hook it up, but there's a play button. If I press that button, it actually starts playing whatever it is that I have running in GarageBand or whatever software you're using. But it's just controlling and sending messages to the computer to interact with whatever is on the note or whatever is on your screen. So the word controller means it's a hardware that controls the software.
Excellent. So you get the computer, get a Mac for about $1,000. It comes already loaded with the software, being GarageBand. Get a MIDI controller with which you can go ahead and control, or should I say, it
Interact.
yeah, you said interact with that software, right? To
That's
produce.
correct.
And as you said, go ahead and label A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And if I were to tie back in and also get a microphone, right? Get a microphone
Correct.
where you can beatbox or just put a sound in there and record it into your GarageBand, and then it
Right.
plays it back to you. And then you can go ahead and try to find the keys, right?
That's
Because some
correct.
here in this space, for example, they because I know Nicer, for example, she writes, let's just say she writes poetry, but she does not have necessarily maybe not a maybe there's a meter and a rhythm to it, but not melodies yet. Now, that is something that, and perhaps it's not your particular expertise, right? But what would you say to someone if someone is like, you know what, I write words, but how do I get a melody out of that? Because you have mentioned, okay, go listen to songs, okay,
Mm-hmm.
that have to do with, let's say, music, where there's a direct association of the song and the scene and an emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then start using that kind of an idea. Maybe you could even try by copying, because a lot of times you have to start by
Somewhere.
copying, right?
Right. Right.
Where you're like, okay, that particular song in that movie, or that thing I wrote down, right? Those set of words remind me of the scene in that movie. What kind of song was played in that movie? And let me see if I can put my words to it. Or what would you say regarding that?
Okay, so what I would say is this: you have to, the first thing you want to gather a little bit of confidence, and knowing that whatever you do in your creative space holds some type of value. Let me give you an example. In my last album, there was a song. It's a song number 9. It's called Imagination. When I started that song, I had no idea what I was going to say on it. I had no clue. So I just played the beat and I just said, okay, the beat's playing. And I'm just like, all right, imagine if you had $1 left to your name. Imagine if you had 5. I just started saying whatever I wanted. And I was freestyling for about 3-4 minutes. And then when I stopped it, I went back and listened to it the next day, because that's just how I do it. I do it the first day. I don't touch it the next, I came back the next day. And I thought, man, that sounds really good. So then I started writing down parts of it that I liked, and then I started modifying parts that I didn't like.
Mm,
And it was such a last minute decision to put that song on the album, and it turns out to be one of the ones, that gets streamed the most. So
mm,
what am I trying to say is, if you have so let's assume you're writing a song, just start humming whatever comes to your mind. Don't worry about accuracy, don't worry about the note and how correct it is, because that is raw, pure um, artistry, right? Think about when you're baking a cake. If you were watching the steps that it took to bake every cake that you're watching, that you eat, at some point it's a raw and messy process, but eventually cleans up, right? So just start by making anything that comes to your mind. As Ike rightfully said, think about another sound that you like, and borrow elements from it, right? Just to kind of prep your mind. So if you were trying to, let's take a popular song like by Teddy Riley, No Diggity, right? I bet
mhm,
you at the beginning it was probably like ba-da-dum, da-da-ba-da-dum. And that's the basic idea. And then you sit and you go back the next day and you thinking, I want to work it. I gotta work. And then you started, and I like the way you work it. And then that's how it starts. And next thing you know it, dun,
mhm.
dun, and then dun, 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 I like the way you work it. No diggity. That's how it starts. But what a lot of people are often nervous about, they're worried about sounding off. In a creative space, there's no such thing as off. It's all about your energy and your confidence. If you're doing it, it sounds good to you, just keep rolling with it. And eventually, now you could collaborate, right? You could bring somebody back with you in the studio. They could say, oh, maybe, I bet you, maybe when Dr. Dre walked in with Teddy Riley, he said, why don't you put, we don't know if that was there. At the end of the day, we're only privileged to hear the final product. So my thing is having that melody is just hum whatever you feel. Don't worry about how stupid it is, or how raw it is, how you think someone's not going to like it, because you don't know that for sure until it comes out on the radio. You really don't have, I mean, there once in a while you're doing a song in the studio and you feel good about it. You say, I know this is going to be a hit. Yeah, I mean, but that comes after 20 years of experience. But when you're starting off, just be raw and continuous. Like Ike says, just fail and fail often, right? And that's one of the quickest quickest ways to learn and grow in music.
Excellent, excellent. I think that's a very good expose on the topic of how to get started. Get a computer, get a Midi controller, and get a microphone. That way you can hum things and record it in. And that's about $1,500 if we're trying to look at the total package. And this $1,500 could, you could get a lot done with it.
That's
Okay.
correct, right?
We're not talking about creating a full studio whereby because if you need to upgrade and do those kinds of things, that may be on along your path, but this is enough to get all kinds of things created. And then if you need to go somewhere else to get things recorded, like for example my music, okay, I don't record my stuff in the studio. It's either like back. I used to go to your place to record things, for example, or and I'm talking about the final product, right? Not
Right.
yeah. Or I go to a studio somewhere, I pay somebody, and then they do that. But
Correct.
get your basics, get your computer, get your MIDI controller, get a microphone. This is about $1,500. GarageBand already loaded in there. That's very, very good. Now, so let's go in a slightly different direction regarding how you got started in music and what it means to you. Let's put it that way. What would you say?
Whew, how I started in music. That started back in the curiosity started. And this is an interesting story. I think I was 18 when it started. And I I was at this stage in my life where I thought, what am I really good at? Right? And I had this crazy idea. I started memorizing the names of directors. Every time I watch a movie, I'll memorize the name of a director because I felt that, if I was hanging out with people, I want to say, oh, I know who directed this movie. And
Mm,
then I was soul searching. I was just looking for something that I can say, I know how to do this. And I
mm,
remember I was going to this church and there was a gentleman by the name of Mel. He's my biggest inspiration, and he was playing the piano in the church, and I was just watching his hands, and I thought, man, that's really, I wish I could play that. And then it turns out that Melvin was leaving the church and he was moving to Los Angeles, and the church was in Moreno Valley, so the
mm,
distance obviously wasn't going to work for him. And I just had this wild idea, and I told the pastor, hey, can I take the keyboard home? I'll learn. And the pastor was like, we don't have no one playing it, so you might as well take it home. So I took it home, and every day I just started touching it. And then, all of a sudden, I just my mind lit up. A year later, I thought, what if I could play this chord progression, and then I can add the bass to it, and then also add the drums of my choice. So I remember buying this Yamaha DJX keyboard, which had 6 tracks. And then on track number 1, I would play the kick and the snare. Track number 2, I would add my hi-hats. And
mm,
track number 3, I would add a piano. Track number 4, I would add a bass and then a string and then one synth, and it would loop for about a minute or so. And then I noticed that people started saying, man, Nuugame did a nice beat. And by the way, the name Nuugame actually is I gave that to myself from I got it from DJ Quick. DJ Quick has a song, his album Balance and Options. If you listen to Balance and Options, song number 2, at the very beginning of the song, DJ Quick says Nuugame, and the beat starts, and I just adopted that name. So in case you're wondering, but that's how it started. And I started hanging out with rappers that they knew that I made beats, and I would make beats and they would rap, and then the next thing you know it, people started coming to me, oh, I heard you make beats. And at the time, producers weren't as popular as they are today. And then it led to me getting my first computer and making some additional software. And now music is really, to answer your other question, music is something that I'm very, very good at. At the same time, it's very it's a form of it heals me, right?
mm,
Every time I do music, it's like I get new energy. Music is the only thing I could do for hours on end. So
mm.
that's how it started, and that's what it means to me. It's just really, it's where I have my that's my drug, if you will. That's where I express myself. That's where I have fun, and it's also become a way, a means of income. I've been making a lot of money doing music this year, which has been really great.
Excellent, excellent. So you're making that pandemic dollar.
That's
And
right.
excellent, excellent. That's very good. Now, how important would you say the tools are? So let me fold this question into two parts. What are the tools you're using right now? Because you talked about getting started, get a Mac, get a MIDI controller, get a microphone. Okay. But now you mentioned that you have like 15 or 10,
Yeah.
150 and whatever's, and I'm sure you got all kinds of things in there and a fancy Mac or whatever it is. Now, the difference between the beginning and the point that you're at, okay, and then kind of guide us as to why you made the choices that you made and how important the tools are. What would you say about that?
Okay, so this is my first advice. Whatever tools that you have, make sure that you can use it from the top to the bottom. And you want to get to a point where you want to do something, but the tools that you have cannot do it. And
Mm,
that's when you upgrade. So you said, what tools do I have? Okay, first of all, I'm going to just turn my camera over here. Those are my keyboards. I have the Korg MS 2000. I have the MPK 88. It's a weighted keys. As you can see, the keys. You can't really see them that well, but those are heavy keys. That's when I want to play a full grand. I'll use that. And I have the Mark III right here, the ones that are lit up. That's
Hmm.
the keyboard that's right next to my hands. Whenever I'm working, I can use that. And then right here, this is my MIDI controller. This is to hit play, to hit stop, record, rewind, loop, and these are other tools that I can use to control the software.
Mm.
And my other tools, I have my Mark III. This is my drum machine. And then I have this. This is called the Rolly Pad. The Rolly Pad, I'll explain that to y'all in a little bit. So what that means is that there was a point in music where I wanted to make. I've heard a string that went that looked like the violinist dragged the tool and it went. And I wanted to do that as a musician that makes as a producer that makes music that I hear in my head. I hear certain sounds and I realized that the keyboard that I had couldn't do it. So what did I do? I went to Guitar Center and I'm over there and I'm and playing around and then there's this really super expensive keyboard and I started playing with it and it had that. I'm thinking, okay, that's gonna solve my problem. So I bring that in the studio. Now the MIDI controller that I showed you earlier, I wanted to be able to hit stop play without using the mouse. So because when you're doing music after a little while, moving and clicking, you're losing creative minutes, right? But just having something. So for example, I'm gonna show you one more time. All I need to do is just put my hand right here and I can hit stop, play, record, rewind with just my fingers. So
Mm.
that's why I went with that. But at the beginning, that I need that? No. When you start doing, $100, multi-$100 projects. I had a $700 project the other day. Took a couple of hours. You're there working for hours, so you want to make things a little bit easier for yourself. The Mark III drum that I showed you over here, that really was so that I have access to making music that's more popular, like trap music. When you're trying to make music like trap music, you because I'm doing this now as a business. My clients might say I need a trap beat. So I wanted
Mm.
something that had all the tools for making trap. Can you make trap without this? Absolutely. But this just makes it a little bit easier because it has all of the tools that in less than 5 minutes you made a trap record. So it just really goes to it gets so think about it as when you live by yourself, you could be satisfied with the one bedroom apartment, and when you get married and have children, maybe you want to get a two bedroom, three bedroom, maybe a house. So a lot of people think that, oh, I have to get a big, you have to be in the studio to make music. No, you just need a very creative mind. And what I mentioned earlier about $1,500, having the right computer, a microphone, a MIDI controller, and all the other accessories to go with it. So ultimately, you start to expand as you start finding limitations with what you have. The biggest mistake you'll see people in the studio, in on Instagram. You'll see them in a big recording studio with all these buttons. The reality is all that really is, it just means that you can have 96 different people making sound at the same time and that board can handle all that work at once. But if you think about you as an artist, you just need one channel, right? So don't get, I mean, those big equipment, they do make a difference in terms of the quality, but you always want to think of music as a vehicle. If you have a Camry, it could take you to Los Angeles if you live in the Inland Empire. Same thing if you have a Mercedes, it'll take you to Los Angeles if you live in the Empire, but a Mercedes Benz just takes you there in style. But does that mean that you must get a Camry? You could start with a Mercedes Benz, but again, it comes down to budget, right? So everything that I just mentioned, my desk alone was about $2,500. My desk, the
Mm.
desk that I'm currently using, about $2,500. So if you're trying to start with your desk at $2,500, you don't have enough money to get a computer. So I don't know if that answered the question, but that's how it goes. When you start to run into limitations of your program, for example, real serious music people they won't use GarageBand, right?
Mm.
The next to GarageBand would be Logic, and that's the same. That's another program offered by Apple. So I was using GarageBand for a while, and then all of a sudden I realized that there's some limitations, and then I upgraded to Logic.
I
But
see.
if you gave me GarageBand right now, I'll make a killer beat with GarageBand.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, the analogy you just gave about driving and then your table being 2,500, your desk being $2,500, and it's almost like saying, "Hey, you can spend $2,500 on tires, right? But you don't have the rest of the car, so might as well go get a Camry and get to Los Angeles, and then
Right.
when you're making that trip over and over and over again, and then maybe yeah, maybe you can get to the car that has $2,500 tires. Now, speaking of the business of it, and you mentioned that you're making money with this, okay? Is there any kind of advice you talked about? The last piece of advice which you just gave, which is about the tools that you use, how important they are, I think is very, very important, which is you want to make sure that you squeeze every bit of juice out of your Logic, I mean, sorry, out of GarageBand and out
Right.
of your current MIDI controller before you
Right.
upgrade. Don't just be like, oh well, I saw this thing on Kanye's studio. Now I'm gonna go work the second shift so I can go buy that thing, but still I haven't squeezed all the juice out of the basics that I have, right?
Right.
So any similar kind of advice when it comes to people who are trying to monetize this thing, both in terms of either time, the attitude, any kind of things they need to do when it comes to registering themselves, copywriting? The floor is yours regarding the whole business aspect of it.
Okay, well, the business aspect is where things start to get a little complicated, and I say complicated because being a business owner at age 23, and learning how to make websites, I cut a lot of costs and all of that out of it. So I have my own personal website, which I did myself. So getting a website just means that you're sending a statement out there. I have a website, because your website could look like $1 million. That's the beautiful thing about websites. It can look like any way you want. Now, let me pause that thought for a second. The reason why clients would walk in my studio and want to pay me the big bucks, when they see the desk, when they see the multiple monitors, they see the drum pads on the table, it means that I'm serious. It means you're serious, right? No one's going to give you a lot of money if they just saw a computer and a keyboard, right? However, if you know how to do what you need to do, and so I'll give you an example. I've had people send me stems overseas. What I mean by stems is they've recorded the song or the music in another country or continent, and they send it to me as individual files. They send it over to me. I mix it over here. I master it over here. They pay me some money, and I send it back over there, and vice versa. So sometimes the stems come from here and they go over there.
Mm.
The point is, they'll pay you to do the work if you can do it, right? And mixing and mastering is another part of music, because that's where music becomes a real business. Because when you mix and master, again, I don't think this platform was for mixing and mastering, but I'm also a mix and mastering engineer. That's why, for the money aspect of it, you get into producing. Because think about it, right now, you can go to Google and just say, I want to buy a beat. You'll find tons of producers selling beats. So the art of producing has become, watered. There's just producers everywhere, and some of them are really beat makers. But we talk about that later. But so getting your hands on a beat is no longer difficult. They're everywhere. In fact, some are given to you free if they put their tags on it. So what you'll find most producers learn eventually is how to mix and master. And mixing is really the art of taking what you've already produced and balancing the sound. So if you make a kick, not making the kick so hard, and if you play the piano, not reducing the volume of the piano, panning things around so it sounds nice and beautiful in the stereo space. And then mastering is really bringing the levels and all the harmonics of the song up to a volume that matches what's already out there. So producers eventually become sound engineers, because that's where there's money. There's always money in mixing and mastering. I've had artists that have no business singing, but they're willing to pay me to mix and master. And my job is just to mix and master it, whether your album goes platinum. Because think about it. Every album that you've heard in your lifetime, or song that's been released by a major label, they paid a bunch of producers, they paid a bunch of sound engineers and all the PRs and everything, whether the album did good or not. So what you learn over time, and that's where you start to need the equipment. That's where you start to need the extra stuff, because to really get a lot of money as a producer, you want to be able to mix and master. So if you have an artist that comes up to you and they say, hey, I like the way you make music, right? I want you to produce this record for me. You sit down with them and you come up with a good record and it sounds good. And when you're done doing it, you're like, well, I can mix it and master it for you. That's going to be an extra $500-$600. So you went from producing the beat for maybe $400 to mixing and mastering it for another $600. And all of a sudden, off of that one client, you've made $1,000. Now, of course, I'm just using random figures. It could be more or less, right? But you could be a producer and you get paid as a producer, and then they take the work they've done with you as a producer and go find a sound engineer to mix and master it.
Mm.
So when you put that in your arsenal, then you eat three times. You eat from producing, you eat from mixing, and you eat from mastering.
Ah, I see. Okay, so now you're talking about this kind of, because the question was business, and I gave you free reign. Now you're talking about like we've talked about certain skills and where the money is at. You're saying
Right,
there's a lot of demand for mixing and mastering, right? There,
right.
because regardless of what's going on, it needs to be mixed and mastered regardless.
That's
But there's
correct.
all kinds of beats out there, so there's a huge supply of beats. You can go on Google and just ask for beats. There's all kinds of beats out there, but not everybody can mix and master. But if you
Right.
know how to make beats and you can mix and you can master, you're eating three times. Okay, so how do you set yourself up? Because you mentioned something that also has to do with marketing or
Right.
self presentation. You talked about the fact that when they get into your studio, they see that you're serious because you got that $2,500 desk and you got thousands of dollars worth of everything else. That means that you're serious now. But how do you get them into the studio to begin with? And I know that this is perhaps this is more general business marketing type of question, but again, people got to eat, people got to make money with this stuff. And if you put in an initial investment of $1,500 for that Macintosh and a microphone and the Midi controller,
Right.
how do you start to put yourself out there to be known in order to get them into your studio in the first place?
Okay. So that's where things get interesting. You first have to make a lot of music. That's you want to make a lot of music because the artist that chooses to work with you is never gonna, I shouldn't say never. You want to be able to work with any kind of artist. So
Mm,
especially when you're starting off, you don't want, oh no, I don't do country. I mean, I'll do country if you pop up, right? I'll do, hey, I'll do some Arabian Nights. I don't care, right? So you want to be versatile. That way you can work with anyone, because strange as this sounds, the people that have the money aren't always the ones that are most talented, but they're
mhm,
the ones that can really benefit from a producer and someone who can guide them, right? So how did I go out there? I made a lot of music.
mm,
I performed, and that's one of the differences between me and most new producers. I can actually play the instrument. So I've been invited to play at live shows. I've been invited to play at big churches. I've been invited to play at concerts for a cause. I've done nonprofit. I've done Black Lives Matter causes. I've done all kinds of causes. So when they hear you play, it's not uncommon for someone to come up to you at the end of it and go, wow, I really enjoyed the way you play. You say, oh, well, thank you. And you start the conversation and say, oh, yeah, you produce. Oh, I've been looking for a producer. That's how I get a lot of my clients. And then I'll make a song or do a track for someone, and then they tell another person. And the next thing you know it, I have a line of people that want to work with me. So um, it takes a lot of time. You can't start making beats tomorrow and expect to be popular by the end of the year. You're going to need to put in some time. Think about it like a basketball game or someone like LeBron. He's putting a lot of time to get to where he's at today. So you start that by making a lot of music. Make music that people can put in YouTube videos, make music that people can put in movies. If you know someone that wants to make a song and they're making a music video to go along with it, that always helps. Having a website helps.
mm,
Open up a SoundCloud account. Don't worry about how good the beat sounds, but worry about it being there, because you never know. I can promise you, if you think about a popular song that came out, that I don't know if you all know the song. A song by John Mayer. The song is called Daughters.
mhm,
Um, if you listen to the story about that song, John Mayer, someone brought the song to John Mayer. He didn't like the song. Well, the song ended up getting him a Grammy. The
mm,
point is, you just never know who's gonna like your record. So open up a SoundCloud account, share it with people, make your music your ringtone. When you post a video on TikTok, use your video. Give your video to artists to listen to. If you know any artist that's popular, has clout, form a business relationship or friendship with them, where you can say, "Hey, can you play my music?" And the next thing you know, you become a household name, and you would stay always busy. Like I'm always busy right now as I speak. I have 7 or 8 projects in my computer that are
mm.
waiting for me. So it's a matter of really being out there and making a lot of music. So that's why I said at the very beginning, if you understand the emotion of the music, then you can make music for what's going on. So for example, if you saw, you know, maybe the recent riot, everyone's rioting, and you've watched a movie and you notice a riot sound. You could take that video that you see on the riot and you could put your music behind it and make a little disclaimer: this video is not mine. Put it on YouTube, and someone's gonna listen to it and go, man, that song right there is fire. But what you're really doing is you're just conveying the emotion of the protesters or the rioters through your music, and that makes you important to what they're watching. So there becomes a connection between the video and between the sound. So getting your music out there is key, and there are tools out there: SoundCloud, and like I said, TikTok, Instagram. I'm not as popular on the social media platforms. That's because I'm just a bit old fashioned, but I have clients. I'm never out of clients. So I'm not really as hungry as someone who's just starting. Besides, I also run a university, so I'm not always available to do a lot of music, but music wise, I'm always busy around the year. I'm never bored without music.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Well, shout out to everybody in the chat right now. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to Lamont Ellis. Shout out to DJ North. Shout out to Mr. Benevolent and Ramil Amir. I believe Ramil Amir stopped by. That's the OG over here. He also he makes beats as well. Okay. Now you guys got to make sure, if you guys don't know, if you don't go to the Beats website with Ramil, you need to check that out for sure. And I'll be leaving, as I already have in the description, a place where you can follow Nuugame. So basically, what you've said regarding the marketing, so you want to expand the top of your funnel. You said, hey, whether it's country music, Arabian Nights, whatever, whatever, whatever. Okay, but because prior to that, and I'm just saying that just for, so that people can follow the stream of the gems that are being dropped here, is first of all, okay, you want to be able to eat three times with mixing, mastering, and producing. You don't just want to be a beat maker, okay? Because there's a high demand for mixing and mastering, but there's without much supply. But the inverse is the case for just beat making. You can get beats everywhere, okay? And then when it comes to how do you get people into your studio, first of all, so you got to have a professional presentation, all that kind of stuff. Once you get them in there, so that they know that you're serious. But how do you get them in there? You say, open the top of your funnel, okay? You do any kind of song, you go any kind of place, go to churches where people can hear you, okay? Where people can hear you. I know it's the Rona right now, but let's just give the examples of, like the churches and the coffee shops or the local charity or some kind of school event, okay? Your local grade school has this particular organization and they do X, Y, or Z, or maybe they play, maybe they have a play and you say, hey, how about I play the music for your play live, right? Rather than you guys do the recording, and they'll greatly appreciate it. Their parents there, okay? Parents got money. You don't know what they do or why they may need somebody that offers those services. So basically expand the top of your funnel and then put yourself out there. Now, in terms of speaking of the Rona and not being able to go to this grammar school or grade school or whatever, now you want to use TikTok, Instagram, and all these other things. I think that the idea that you mentioned about taking a particular scene or a meme, right, and then putting your music behind it, okay. But you can take that, the popular Leonardo DiCaprio one where he's he's sipping something. I think it was from the Django movie,
and he's laughing.
And then he's laughing, and you have some kind of an animation behind it, and then you put some kind of happy music, your beat behind that, and you put it out there. Right, memes are really, a great marketing tool out there right now. Now, before we get into because I believe that you got, and you talked about that MIDI machine over there that you're gonna tell us something. You promised to let us know about something over there, right? I want to go ahead and read some of the chats out here, see what else is going on. Someone's talking about, I'm just using the MPC 2.0 program for now. Okay, MPC is something that I used to hear like back in the day a lot. Okay, so what exactly is the MPC? Is it a MIDI controller? Is it a MIDI player? What is it?
The MPC is a okay. So in the late 90s, early 2000, or if you say 90s and 2000, the MPC was a staple, and it was made popular by Dr. Dre and David Blake. And for those of you who don't know David Blake, that's actually DJ Quick. They made that drum machine popular, and what it was popular for was how responsive the pads were. That was number one. Number two, it was one of the first drum machines that came with its own sounds and allowed producers to load up new sounds to it. but it
Mm,
was also a MIDI controller, but it was ultimately a standalone drum machine that allowed you to sample records and sample sounds, and it had a very good in the pocket pad. What I mean by in the pocket, I can say dum, tee, dum, tee, dum, tee, dum, tee. That's just 1 2 1 2 1 2. But MPC had this really nice quantized swag. You can go dum, tee, dum, tee, dum, tee. So it just allowed our producers to capture what we call in the pocket sounds, and the pads were so responsive. The music industry had never seen anything that responsive. Over
mm,
time, the industry has caught up, right? You have Machine, who's, they've taken over the drum machine world, but Akai was the one that produced the MPC, and over the years they've tried to stay relevant. But you'll find what they call the old fashioned producers still holding on to the MPCs. But whatever you could do with the MPC now, it's lost its magic for the most part.
mm.
But some old school producers still hold on to it. I had one, I say about 2 years ago. I ended up selling it because I just wasn't using enough. It was just studio decoration.
Interesting, yeah, because what you mentioned, it may be related or not to straight versus swing type of.
Right.
Okay, good, 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 good. Yeah.
Well, just to clarify that, swing would be if I say dum dee dum dee dum dee dum dee dum. That's a traditional 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, right? But the
Mhm.
swing can make it go dum dee dum dee dum. So the swing just kind of goes fast, goes a little, it swings past a couple of sounds and gives it a skip. But the MPC allowed you to capture just about every quantize within the swing in a way that nothing else had ever done before. But
Mm.
using modern software today, you can get yourself any kind of swing. As a matter of fact, you can play a sound and drag it on the grid a nudge at a time to get the exact sway or swing that you're looking for.
Excellent. So right now, what we're gonna do, okay, what we're gonna do is you're gonna give us a little display, okay? You're gonna, and I hope you got something ready. If you do you think you can give us kind of like a live right now off the dome? Just create a beat from scratch. Maybe share your screen with you're probably using Logic, right?
Yes, I'm using Logic. Okay. I think I could do something for y'all. Let me see. Let me get started. Um so
Excellent.
I have to turn on my monitors because our sound is that's the best way we can do it right now. So I'm gonna pull up Logic.
Okay. Do you need
Okay.
me?
Yeah, I go ahead and I'm requesting a screen share.
Gotcha. Boom.
Okay. So the first thing that we want to do, what I have loaded up here, I have I'm just gonna make this a little bit bigger. I have a kit called the Swagged Out Kit. Now, one of the things that I do, and this is just after doing this for so many years, I organize my stuff at the very beginning. As you
Hmm.
can see, I have a kit here. It's called the Swagged Out Kit. And what I did, I put a picture, and simply by right clicking, and I just selected this, and it gives me that way. That tells me that the sounds that are included in here are made up of many different parts. So for example, if I played that off here, so I have a variety of sounds. So that tells me off the jump that I'm working with something with multiple sounds. On this one, I labeled this as this is the claps kit. So it's called Golden Kingdom Claps Kit. So I know everything here all claps. So let me turn this up a little bit so y'all can hear me. So that gives me access to a variety of clap sounds that if I'm ever going to need it for the track, I have that. And this is my snares kit. So that way, if I need inspiration, I have that. And kicks, I love kicks as a hip hop head. I'm there's never enough kicks. So we have kicks. So that's just one set, and I have another set over here. If you notice the icon on here, I'm just gonna make it a little bit bigger. I put a picture of a kick, and on this icon here, the kick is a little bit different. That's just telling me that this is a different kit.
Mm.
And on the snare, I put the picture of a snare drum so that I know that those are my snares. And then I have my piano, so obviously I can use my. So I have that. And then you got to have bass. It'd be hard to hear the bass, but so that's bass. And then I have some strings. And I remember I showed you all this instrument earlier. This is the Rolly pad. Now, what's cool about this particular MIDI controller, I can play it anywhere. So I can touch right here. There was a time in my life I wanted that sound and I did not know how to create it. So that's what's now this alone in itself is about $300-400, right? So now, of course, it has the traditional keys. So you have the 3-2, 3-2, and you could play a chord. So I could play a C chord right here, right? But I could do this. So if I wanted to create a scary sound, I could just go. That's that. So we have a string sound right here. Now, if you notice right here, I call this orchestra string, right? Because I specifically chose those icons so I can remind myself that this is for an orchestra sound. And if you look at this last one over here, I put just a one violin, and simply just by right clicking on here, and then you get a selection. I just chose one. This way, I told myself this is a single string. So for starters, I'm gonna pick a tempo. So that's a metronome. It's very important when you're making a song to start off with a metronome, because that just gives you this. So that's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Now, if you want to make hip hop, most hip hop tracks live around 100. I'm gonna drop that to 100. So I'm just gonna press record. So what I usually do, I always come into the
beats per minute. You mean, right?
Yeah. Sorry, thank you for clarifying that. 100 beats per minute. What I always do is I always start off with my drums personally. If I'm not sure what to do on to play it, I'll beatbox it and try to find it later. But since we're just kind of going off the top, I'm just gonna press record. And before I do that, what I like to do is I'll go to my swag kit, right? Oh, by the way, this is a kit for grinding. So no, it's So in case you're wondering, it's called the swagged out kit. So anyways, what I first do is I go to my swag kit because that has everything. So let's say I want to do this. So let's just take that. So I'm going to press record. Now, I told you guys about this little instrument right here. All I need to do is just press the record button right here. I just press record and I'm ready to go. So that way I don't have to move the mouse. So I'm just going to press record and I locate where my kicks and my snares at. So now you notice off the swag kit, I'm just looking at my snares and kick right there, even though I have those additional kick snares that I mentioned earlier. So I'm gonna press record. Okay, so we just have a little kick and snare action going on there. So the first thing I'm going to do after doing that is I'm just going to loop. I turned on the loop right there just so I can have that section play over and over. And I'm going to quantize it. So quantizing just allows the system to arrange everything that you just played on the right grid so it sounds like it's clean. So I'm just going to put it on 1/8, and I'm going to just press play. I'm just going to put some hi-hats, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and duplicate this sound right here. And I'm just going to call this hi-hats. That way I have that. And I'm just going to play. So we're going to start with the crash. So 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and do the same thing. I'm just going to quantize that 1/8, and here we go. Now, you notice I put this clap kit over here, right? So I want to thicken that snare a little bit, right? So let me look for a clap. So I can take this, go. So see that? Put a little clap on this. I'm just gonna go ahead and record that. Same thing. I'm just gonna go ahead and put quantize that at 8 just so it's on time. And now this next part, this is where I have an advantage over a lot of producers in that I can play anything that I hear in my head. I could jump on the keyboard and play. Let me grab my pedal real quick.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
And it's important as a producer, make sure you know how to play an instrument. It's important because that's really going to separate you from everybody else. It's easy to get comfortable doing, MIDI notes. That's all great and gravy, but when you could play, you have an edge. So I'm just going to let the beat play a little bit and look for something to go with that. So whatever, right? So I'm just gonna go ahead and record. Let me drop this.
So at this point, okay, at this point, would you say that what you've done right now is you've chosen a chord progression and that is it's gonna lock you in, right?
Right.
I'm just trying to make it clear. Okay, so you got the beats and you got all that rhythm section, which doesn't have anything to do with any notes at this point. But now you're gonna feel what comes, what feels good to you by playing on the keyboard. But once you choose that chord progression, okay, now you're locked in. Now the bass and all those other instruments and whatever flourishes are gonna have to work within that chord progression, right?
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up because at the very beginning I said we're gonna do a hip hop record, right? So when you're making hip hop, there's certain notes and frequencies that work best in hip hop. So if I took this, if I played the same thing and I played a different progression, I played this so that's more of a jazzy progression. Now, if I played something like this, that's got a happier tone to it, right? On the same beat. Now, if I took this one, this has more danger and tension. So so it really goes, what mood am I in? That's why I don't know if you've heard the expression, when you're in your lowest, you make some of your best music, because you tap into a part of you that you're not there often, or you can't be there by choice, right? So for me, I just look for, I look, a lot of times I go based on what the artist wants, but in my own element, I'll make whatever I'm feeling at the moment. So if I were to record let me just take I'm just gonna play an old progression. I'll just do what I did earlier. Okay, I'm gonna record that. Okay, so I'm just gonna take that, and I'm just gonna go ahead and play it. And let me go ahead and quantize that. Okay, so we have our piano. I'm just gonna go ahead and throw some bass on there, which would be right over here. So okay, so I just threw a little quick bass on there. And I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm just going to follow the same loop of 1/8. So they all, the quantize, so they all just match each other. So Okay, now remember I had this orchestra string, and because I have multiple violins in there, I'm just reminding myself all I need to do is just play something like this. Um, Let me go back to it. Oh, that's on the rollie. Sorry, my mistake. So that's this controller, right?
Hmm.
Because I have this controller activated and the software is loaded for this controller. That's why when I use the controller on this side, it didn't work. But when I
Hmm.
do it over here, so that's so I'm just gonna drop that a little bit and
You want me
so
to add something here just to because something I also I may represent like the amateur beat maker out here because
mhm,
what I do is I can make beats too, but generally speaking, I'm more of a songwriter, singer, and so on and so forth. But the way I write songs is the songs come to me whole, or in other words, there's a melody already that I'm humming along, and it's mainly
okay,
about an emotion, right?
right,
So that locks you in, right? And in terms of a chord progression, right? And
right,
then it just flourishes. And I mentioned that because it may be useful because you started out with that with the piano to kind of get the chord progression, and then
mhm,
the a lot of times the strings which you're playing right now could just be a almost a repetition of just the chords. You're just playing the chords. You may not have to do a melody per se, like
right.
or you could just go.
Right. Well, you know, to answer your question, so everything is driven by the mood of the song. So with a
Mhm,
song like this, what I would normally do in by myself as a producer, if I was just sitting alone, as this beat is playing, I start humming something else. So like, maybe it'd be dun 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 dun. So as once I establish that sound, I go. Oh, I'm sorry, I got my hand on the wrong place. So I start playing that, and
mhm,
then I bring that element into the song, and it just adds a new dynamic, right? Now, to what Ike said earlier, if we're saying we have the words for the song, so if I were putting the words to the song, it'd be you can't test me, yo, you can't test me, so that you can't test me. So I might take the string and start going boom, doom, 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 because that just puts an underlying tone on the record that you could just be enjoying the whole time you're listening to it, not knowing that it was actually put there intentionally. So, but the little the string that I was playing, the thumb 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 thumb, that could just float on the bottom of the record, and it starts to create moments in the record that you're listening to as a listener, and you're telling yourself, "Wow!" Matter of fact, you might say that's my favorite part of the record.
mhm,
So, to Ike's point, you could put vocals on there. It could be anything. It could be. I just said you can't test me because that just came off the top of my head, but it could be anything that you want it to be, understanding that it has to match the intensity of what the beat has already given you.
mhm,
Sometimes the artist will walk into the studio and they have their idea, and then your job as a producer is to bring the correct musical elements. For example, the piano sound that you hear on here was specifically chosen for hip hop. And I'm
mhm,
just gonna go ahead and open it up a little bit so you could see what that looks like. Um, if you look on here, the piano is called the Giant. The Giant piano, after doing this for such a long time, gives you some really nice low end, raunchy, low sound. So it has like a dung. It's got a bit of an ugliness to it that fits hip hop. Now, if I were doing an R&B record for an artist, this is the piano I would use. I would use this one right here. This particular piano sound is by the great Alicia Keys. And just to give you an example, here's how it sounds when you play something on it. Let me just play an Alicia Keys record. So if I played Alicia Keys, um so it's got that nice sexy to it that fits
mhm,
R&B and gospel or anything that's soft. If you're doing hip hop or pop, you want to use a Giant because they have a little bit more raunchy and oomph to it. That so picking sounds becomes a science down the road, right? That's why you want to spend a lot of time playing with sounds. And one thing I would encourage everyone to do when you start producing and you find a set of sounds that you like, create a new file and say hip hop favorite sounds. And then
Mm-hmm.
any hip hop sound that you find, leave it in there. So if you get an artist that says, I want to do hip hop, just open that template and that already has all the sounds that you want. Do the same thing for country or trap or any genre of music. So, but being an old timer, as far as doing it for as long as I've done it, I know them all in my head. I don't necessarily use templates, but if I need to, I could create 10 templates in a minute.
So DJ Knopf over here is asking, well, he says, can he touch on layering? Okay, layering, right?
Mhm.
Is it necessary for every track, or does it depend on the sound, etc.?
It depends on the sound. So now we're getting a little bit we're getting a little bit deep into it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna play this particular sound, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in um a very special plugin, and I'm
Mm,
gonna play the sound. So this is the da, boom boom ba, boom boom. Now, if you notice, the snare is occupying this frequency right here, right? And the kick is occupying this frequency. But you notice that this frequency right here in the middle here is a little lower.
mm-hmm,
90% of the time, this is where the artist's vocals will swing in there. Because that clap snare is occupying so much on that frequency, it might be okay. But I have a I don't know if you can hear the sound. You probably can't hear it, but you're just seeing the frequency
yeah,
move.
we're seeing it, but we can't hear it.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm just gonna, if you remember, I had put a little clap right here, right? So I'm going to close this one. And on the clap right here, no, sorry, that's my snare kit. I'm going to put the same EQ on there, and I'm going to play the record. And look at the frequency the clap is occupying, right? That was the same frequency with the snare. So
Mm,
if you're playing two sounds and they're occupying the same frequency, you're just giving yourself a little bit more work. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Now you got to start balancing so that they're not fighting for space in the music. But
mm,
let's just pretend that on this particular sound here, I'm going to stop it and I'm going to go back to this original one here. And let's pretend that I wanted the timbre. What I mean by timbre means the harmonic distortion. I'm going deeper. Wait, the sound that you're hearing from the snare. What if I wanted to bring more of the clap in? I could just come in right here and I can drop that frequency, right? And then when the clap is playing, you notice that this is the frequency of the snare right here on the right. This is
mm-hmm,
the frequency of the clap. Now, of course, I wouldn't do this in real life, but let's just imagine for demonstration purposes, I just chose to boost this. All of a sudden, I'm making the listener enjoy the reduced frequency of the snare and the improved frequency of the clap.
mm-hmm,
So that's when you would layer. So, because sometimes as a producer, you might just feel it in your guts that you
mm-hmm,
want both sounds to be on there. So you
mm-hmm.
have to understand that if both have to be on there, you're going to have to give up something, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. You just have to understand, is that the sound that I want to give the listener? Because is that what I'm hearing as a producer? If the answer is yes, then you can layer it. But is it necessary? Absolutely not.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yes, and thank you for getting into that. And we don't want to get too deep there, Mr. DJ Knopf, right? But basically, again, you guys should go ahead and make sure you follow New Game on Instagram and on Facebook. But we're gonna get back right back into the beat. I think you were at the point where you're gonna be playing those strings, right? So
Yeah.
let's see what you got. Let's see what you got.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm gonna turn this one off.
Mm-hmm.
This is my Rolly. Rolly is off right now. That way I can use the keyboard on my left because that's where I do a lot of my stuff. So I'm gonna go to the orchestra string. Let me put my speakers back on here.
Okay.
And give me a second here. Let me get myself together. Now I'm gonna pull up a menu. This might throw some of you off, but nothing to worry about. Because this is just new game stuff. Okay. Okay, so you can hear my strings now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and play an underlying tone. This is the beat itself. I don't know if you noticed that the snare had lost a lot of life, and that's because I had put this EQ on to demonstrate something. I'm gonna turn those off. Okay, so let me go back to the strings here. I'm gonna go.
Hold on a second.
Yes.
Can you put the camera, or is it possible for you to put the place, or you gotta hold it, or can you?
No, I can bring it down here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Let's see the magic.
okay, so pardon me. This is it's a okay. So you could see right there. Y'all could see it. If I put my
Yeah,
hands on it.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go ahead and press record because I need so. Okay, so that was my let me put this back here. That was just the strings, right? Let me see if I recorded that. So I'm just gonna solo it so you can hear it. Which is right here.
For the audience, strings are basically your violins, your violas, those things that are played with the is it called a bow? What do you
Yeah,
what do you
it's called a bow instrument, and as you can see, that's why I put the viola, the violin, and the cello. That's why
yeah.
I put those instruments. That's just to tell me visually that that's what's going on. So I'm not gonna bother quantizing that because I kind of want it to sound a little delayed. That's just me. But here it is. Now, in the full record, all instruments may not always play together. There'll probably be moments where they'll stop. So
Yeah.
I'm just gonna. So I said to you earlier, I put a little. I was thinking about a doom 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 doom. So
Mhm.
now this is where experience plays a role, right? The
Yeah. So
sound.
ask
Let's,
what you gonna you gonna is it gonna be the plucking of some kind of a string instrument
right.
or
Yeah. So it's called the
already?
pit. It's called the pit string. So see.
Mhm.
So what it is when a violinist or someone who plays a string instrument, when they press the strings down and they hit the bow with the string, it creates a little doom doom doom. Now you know what's interesting? This sound is used for creeping. If you're watching a movie and someone is going or the popular Mario.
Oh.
So the pits gives a creepy, like you could say so it's someone wants to kind of sneak past in a movie, they would use this sound. So when you use it in hip hop, it creates a creep in the middle of chaos. So it brings two unrelated elements into one element of music. So let me show you, for example. Now play the same song. So it almost creates a calm in the middle of the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And what that does ultimately, as a listener, when you're listening to the song, without the producer breaking these elements down for you, you have no idea what it is that you like about the record. But these are little elements that we do as producers to put that in there. So you're just going, so you could just walking over to your office, you're going doom 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 doom, and that's the element that's following you, and that's intentional. So let me go ahead and I think I recorded that. Did I record that? Let me go ahead and record it. Now, if you notice, I played it on one lower octave and a higher octave just to give it some color. And I'm going to play it by itself. So here's what it sounds like by itself. Now, by itself, if I play the strings to go with it, here's what it sounds like. Here's the bass. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add the hi-hats in there. There you go. And here's the piano. Now, it would not be uncommon for me as a producer at one point in the record to play this pluck string over here and the orchestra string and play both of them together like this.
And bring in the bass and
bring the bass. So that way, when the artist is rapping and maybe they're expressing something that they need the listener's attention, you could take some elements off the record just to bring that attention. So these are little creative things that go along when you're working with the artist. But your job as a producer is to lay all the foundations down, and as needed, you can separate them. So I think, I mean, and I'm going to show you all one other little trick that you can use to your advantage. If you're using these software, they give you lots of free sound. So I can come in right here and I can look for, maybe I'm looking for a let's say I'm looking for a, let me say I'm looking for a shaker, right? Now, if you notice the shaker is playing, I could play the beat, right? Watch. You hear the shaker in there?
Yeah.
See that? So a lot of these software, they give you a lot of pre-programmed instruments that you can use to add color, and it's completely okay to use that. It's pretty much like putting barbecue at Lucille's. It's available to you. You could choose to eat it raw, right? So you can listen to the sound separately, and the beautiful thing about it, it automatically matches the beats per minute of your record. So if you put your record at 90, let's demonstrate. Right now, this record is at 100 beats per minute, right? I'm gonna play it and slow it down in real time. Watch. See that? I can speed it up. So if I played the recordings over here, watch this. I mean, that sounds a little rushed, but you get the point. When it's sped up a little bit, it'll match whatever sounds you put on there. That's I think I had a single string articulation I wanted to put in there on this one, but I had accidentally overrode it to match the. So everything that I play, everything that I hear, I play on the keyboard. And even if I don't know how to play it, I'll look for it. So right now the tempo, if I just play the piano and it's just playing. Let me put that back to 100. So it's a little too fast. So I'm gonna demonstrate something. So that's the piano. I'm gonna turn this one off, and imagine that I had this one on, and I wanted dum 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 dum. So what I do, I go to the keyboard. Dum 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 dum. So I just keep playing around with different sounds, and I find one that sticks, and you'll know it when you start vibing. You just know it sounds good. Exactly. But a lot of times I'll put it on and let the beat ride for like 5 minutes and play a bunch of different versions that come in the head, and then I get to one, and you just feel it in your mind, in your soul, like that feels right. And it doesn't hurt to bring someone else in the studio. Surprisingly, I'll bring my 11-year-old. I'm like, what do you think? He goes, oh, I like that, right? Because after you might get ear fatigue, or what I call producer fatigue, you've been listening to variation of sounds, and don't be afraid to explore what sounds. Like if I come in here, sometimes what I'll do is I'll look for like something really off, like this is a timpani hit. So and that could just be an underlying tone. So if I played So what I would do sometimes, I would take that, pan it to the right, or I mean pan it to the left or pan it to the right, and bring the volume down. Or if I really want to get super creative, I'll put a little reverb on there. And to put a reverb is simple. This is our sound right here. And to put a reverb, I'm just gonna go ahead and come in right here. And from my list of sounds, there's a reverb right over here, a Space Designer. And watch how it's gonna sound. And that's probably good enough. And I could just let it play and watch what happens. So it creates an effect that stimulates the listener without taking anything away from the sounds that are already going on.
Yeah, it adds the staccato. It adds that rhythmic hit, right?
Right.
Which is what the timpani is for, right?
Right.
So we're gonna, and this was very, very, very good. Okay, I think this was a very good demonstration. Let me get a one in the chat if this is something that you guys are finding useful. For those of you who may be songwriters out there or producers in whatever stage of the game that you're in, let's get a one in the chat. And then one thing I would like to do to kind of round this up is I want you to play. Okay, I want you to play the song. Okay, and I'm gonna try to rap over it, because that's what I do. Mr. Lyricist extraordinaire over here. So I want you to play that, and I probably have a couple of things I want to kind of try over it as we. Okay. So and as you play it, you can take elements in and out if you can do that all the time. And let's see if we could just kind of, because the whole thing is we're playing, we're creating. It's a jam session, that kind of a vibe, and then we see what fits, right?
Okay. What I'm going to do is, first of all, let me just capture that timpani because I kind of was feeling the timbre on it. Let me just record that. Okay, so that actually sounds really good. The timbre is nice. All right, so okay, so I don't know how this will flow in real time, so let me go ahead and try it. So I'll play the beat from the top. Ready? Okay.
Don't let us know if we're on time or not. Or is my talking taken away from the sound? It sounds like you're doing that.
Is there a delay?
No, it seems like when I speak, right, it takes away from the volume of the playback. Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, I think the next time we collaborate, I've heard that there's some tools out there that allows this to happen in real time, and I think it's worth looking into.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so that way we don't have to be listening to what you're playing through the mic. Yeah, to people in the audience. That's what he's saying. That way it can be a direct feed, and we'll have our act together. But you know what? Thank you very much. Okay, and thank you for the people also. Thank you. Shout out to King Will says. Shout out to Nicer. Okay, shout out to DJ Knobs. Shout out to Mr. Benevolent. Okay, and basically, how do you get started? Okay, you're trying to make beats. How do you get started? Get a Mac. Okay, get a Mac because it will last you the longest in terms of being the preferred instrument or preferred computer for all kinds of production and artistic endeavors in general, right? So get a Mac, get a Midi controller, and get a microphone. That's about $1,500. Okay. Yes. King Will says, Ike, we got to sit down and talk music. Yeah, I've been saying that. I've been saying that for a while. We got to sit down. We got to talk music. Okay. And then we got to collaborate on a track. Okay. Now, the question follows after that, or should I say before that, you want to understand the emotion of music. And this is where the listening comes in. Okay. The listening is go ahead, understand what sad sounds like, what happy sounds like, because it's all about the emotions. Okay. It's all about eliciting of a certain emotion. So go ahead and have that kind of an understanding. Okay, maybe I have words that I've written and there are happy words, but I want to put a melody to it. Go ahead and listen to a happy scene in the music, and you can kind of fit a rhythm and a melody to that. And then in your ear, you go to your MIDI and try to play the sound until you hear it. Right? You play that sound, da 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 da, whatever it is you hear in your head, you put it out there. Right? And then when it comes to how does one monetize this, okay, which is another thing that we touched upon. Basically, like everything else, you want to expand your funnel, okay? You want to expand your
Right.
funnel. You want to start with your where you are at, okay? You want to go to the local church, go to the local place that plays music, or a could be a school, it could be whatever it might be, but you want to increase your exposure. You want to go out there to TikTok and all these other social media things and overlay on a meme, for example, or a video. I think the example that you gave was a Black Lives Matter video, and you say,
Right.
"Hey, here's what I got, a beat that sounds like a riot," so, something like that, and then I can overlay that on a video and put it out there, and people will say, "Hey, I think that sounds good," and you can write down there, "Oh, this is kind of my stuff." You also mentioned that you want to be able to eat three times. You want to be able to eat through producing, which is beat making, but then where there's more demand is in the mixing and the mastering. The mixing
Correct.
and the mastering, that's where there's more demand, that's where there's more money. But and and then we went into the whole thing, live demonstration. You find a chord progression, and this may be something that it may sound strange, or you can, some people may be like, what is a chord progression? But basically, it is the flow of the music, okay? Things, songs don't go on all the possible keys,
Right.
from the beginning of the piano to the end of the piano, right? They stay within a certain range, okay? And once you have that in your head, everything else you're going to be playing is stuck within that range. First, you play the piano chords, okay? And now the timpani, the strings, the bass line, the pluck, the tapping, okay, of that instrument, all that stuff had to be within that bounded frame that was created by the chord progression, okay?
Right.
Generally speaking, again, yes, engineering is always needed. Yes, engineering, mixing and mastering. Yes, that's I guess mixing and mastering is engineering, right?
Right.
So that part is always needed. So you want to be able to, if you get into this beat thing, not just make beats, but learn how to mix and master, and develop an ear for it, and that's how you be able to make money, as if yes, if you will.
Right.
Now, go ahead, okay? Go ahead and follow New Game, okay? Go ahead and follow New
I
Game,
appreciate it.
definitely, on Instagram, on Facebook, and check out the other interview that I did with him on this channel, and that was in his capacity as the president of American Heritage University. Look, like, you can, okay, you can't be too busy. In other words, making excuses about, well, I gotta work, that's why I'm not getting my beat stuff or my writing stuff. No, like, this gentleman here is the president of a university, okay? He's the president of American Heritage University, but still he also showed you that, hey, he can make money too by mastering the art of music producing, okay, which is something that a lot of us have a feel for. Everybody loves music, right? And some of us would want to take it beyond that to getting creative in the space, but sometimes we make excuses about how busy we are. But trust me, if a president of American Heritage University can make music, make money from music, and learn, and also come here and share ideas with you, then really you don't really have any excuses, is what I'm saying here. So I'm going to end this stream with one of his beats, okay? We're going to end this stream with one of his beats.
Real quick, Ike, someone asked a question on the chat, and I thought I should just answer it. She said, "What two producers would you like to see at the next versus battle?" Um, my two favorite producers, really, Dr. Dre and DJ Quick.
There you go, Dr. Dre, really quick. I think he just won. I think he just won. Oh, he said, I'm always looking for beats for my next release on Empire. That's King Will says. Yeah, Mr. King Will says, you know how to reach me. Let's talk. Plus, again, follow New Game. Reach out to him. He's the beat master extraordinaire. I'm
Thank you.
more of the singer, songwriter, vocalist, rapper, all the other stuff, performer, whatever, sing, whatever. I'm the clown, okay? So you go ahead and you reach out to him for that. And also, we got to talk, possibly, do a little chat on your channel regarding music and certain other things. Okay. Now, thank you both for this. It was dope. Thank you, Nicer. Thank you, King Will says. Thank you to everybody. We're gonna close this out with a beat. See y'all.